Hey, happy first Monday of November. I can't believe it. Okay, well, I mean, I can believe it because it's the first Monday of November. But look, let's just get right into it. We've got a new month, and this we can just have a clean deck, a clean slate, right? And it's now, if you're in my neck of the woods, the air has gotten more crisp and the leaves are changing. And, it's definitely feeling the seasons are like ebbing now, right? And you just all the beautiful colors, and there's just that little bit of a nip in the air that it's like, just makes me miss summer, but yet I'm excited for what is to come, and the sky is like, perhaps the sky's the color of resolve, right? And the other thing is thinking about too with the changing leaves and the colors and things like that, and the leaves starting to fall from the tree. It's like thinking about, a leaf is letting go, like a almost perhaps like this organic, natural, like a nature's like tiny master class in courage, right? And today, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about courage and starting on purpose, right? Starting now, not later, not, when the weather's hot or the weather clears up or once the holidays are over, or, because you want things to be perfect, or you want this to happen, or you want this to be in line, right? I'm talking about now because the quote that I picked for today, actually, this one's like a super cool one, and I'm sure we've all heard it before. And, but it would be cool, perhaps write it down on a post-it note or, on an index card and take it with you for the month, like, and just to look at it. And, you know, as a little reminder going into this month and to, start the thing, like do it now, right? So a ship is safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are for. John A. Shedd. And I want to talk about your ship, right? It could be your life, your work, perhaps it's your body and your health or your mindset or, your relationships, whatever it is, it's the open water that you were built to be on. And with that, seductive or safety, that is like such a seductive thing, right? It's like, it's like being enveloped by the smell of, cinnamon rolls, or like sipping, like from me, sipping my favorite tea and holding the mug, and just all of that, the tangibility, that all of the senses that are hit with that, right? It could be familiar playlist or, walking the same route every day, or anything that looks like a tidy checklist, right? Like where everything is easily checked off and nothing disturbs, the fragile equilibrium of quote unquote fine, right? And look, I am not discounting a checklist. I love a good checklist. In fact, our brains love patterns, but safety throws weighted blankets over dreams and whispers, right? But that's not what we're here for. We are made literally, we are made for the rough and tumble, for the waves crashing, the wake, and to be in the wind, right? And, to have our lungs know what it is like to inhale the deepest, salt air. And, our nervous systems, they are meant for expansion, not like being in this tiny, tight little compartmentalized cubicle of a space, right? Again, it's wired for expansion, adaptation, and the thrill of doing something hard on purpose because it matters, right? And, it's like we forget that in the dull hum of routine, and believe me, I fall prey to this. Some days I literally feel like I'm losing my mind because my life can feel very just routine, right? And, but our body hasn't forgotten, right? The body remembers and the soul remembers, and the ship of our life, whatever direction, that remembers as well. And, with that, harbors aren't, villains per se, right? They are necessary. it's where we can refuel and we, resupply and we repair and we recalibrate and we reset in our personal harbor. But, it's, that would, maybe it looks like your sleep, maybe it looks like you're journaling or you're lifting or, self-care, whatever it is. And it could be eating like real food or, tell the truth to your best friend. But the harbor, it's not the destination. It's not the stopping point, right? It's just where you spend some time. It's a staging area, if you will. And when your harbor becomes the home, this like, I mean, honestly, when you look at the bottom of a boat, what do they typically get on the bottom of a boat? Barnacles. And the longer that you're there, the more freaking barnacles you're going to get. And I know it's like metaphor after metaphor, but like it's sometimes if you have a picture of it, it just makes it sink in a little more. And the thing is, avoidance is very sneaky. And it doesn't often look like fear. It looks like productivity. And I am speaking, oh my God, I'm speaking. This one hits home for me. And that's why I wanted to talk about it at the beginning of this month, because it's kind of something that I have been in the midst of. You know, it's the calendar's packed, right? Or you have all of the things listed in your book, again, the checklist, everything's like written out, how my day flows and things like that. The to-do list is so long, right? The day is busy. But, you and I both know that busyness can be an alibi. And, if we're honest, like the harbor gets so comfortable, we convince ourselves that, well, I'm taking that boat out. That's just optional, right? So perhaps we are polishing, the boat's railing instead of doing the launch. Or, let's clean out the spice rack that we haven't touched in who knows how long instead of writing that pitch. Or, maybe this is something that I do. I would do another round of, whatever exercise just to, instead of like doing something that I know needs to get done. It's familiar. It's lower stakes, right? It keeps our hearts quiet and it keeps our lives small. But there's the illusion at the same time, oh, but I did do the thing, right? So let's personify what safety is for a second. So safety is just very charming. And again, it's very sneaky and it's very seductive and alluring. And it says, look, I've got a routine for you, so it's a predictable one, but yet it's going to be so manageable for you, and you're never going to have to feel awkward or messy or new again. And safety has this impeccable timing too. Like it's amazing how that shows up, right? It shows up with a plausible reason, right when you were about to try something brave, right when you were about to do the task that you had on your action list, right? Maybe it's, something, it shows up as like, don't ask for the raise. Let's just wait till Q1. Or don't launch that offer. Your website is, font is off by like 2% and you got to fix that. Or, maybe it's like, don't start sprint intervals because your shoes are 6 weeks old. Or, something like, don't say how you really feel, because if you do, it's going to cause, you're going to rock the boat and then things might get complicated. Safety has this way of blanketing us. It's like nostalgia mixed with plausible deniability, right? It smells like, not teen spirit. It smells like, I used to be so good at whatever that is, and I'll get back to it. I swear I will get back to it because I know that I can do it. And, listen, I love a good season of stability. Seriously, we all know that, right? But, we need it. And I'm not denying that. But there is this very fine line that we cross when we stop stabilizing and we start stagnating, when we stay fixed, right? And we all know the feeling. I mean, it's that ache that shows up at 3:17 p.m., could be a bored kind of fatigue. I mean, I've experienced all of this, it's like you're not physically wrecked, but you feel spiritually under challenged, mentally under challenged, right? It's an energetic version of stale bread, right? And you need to go out and you need to get on the horizon. You need to go to the expanse of the horizon. And here's where it gets real, right? You can't leave the harbor that you won't name. So you need to name the thing. So let's call it harbor habits, if you will. They're the routines that look tidy and safe, but they quietly keep you small. It's just basically you're just making the list that can check off, and every time you check, they're not moving you forward, right? They're really not actionable steps. They are defensible and they sound responsible, but they're often, they're applauded by people who like you best when you're predictable. So, common harbor habits might be over planning, right? So you make 5 versions of a plan. I've done this. I can't even tell you how many times. And then you stress test the plan instead of testing yourself, right? So that would be like, okay, so here's some different versions, right? And it's like and here's 2 where we can fall in and still pick one that's the safest, right? Perfectionism is you wear high standards like it's a freaking award. And now listen, let me rephrase it. It's perfectionism. Because I think you need to have high standards, right? But you wear perfectionism like a cape or like a badge of honor while you avoid what the superhero's job actually is, right? And the whole point of being a superhero with a cape is to take flight. So it's like imposter syndrome. You are saying the thing, but you're not actually doing the thing. And again, I speak from experience. I believe I battle with myself about this all the time. Something else would be like output without exposure. So you create, but you never share. And I do this. I am so guilty of doing this, right? You know, maybe it's training and you never test, or you write drafts that never see daylight. Like you maybe even know, like I have little, courses that I've written, and for whatever reason, and it's personal to me, holds me back from putting these courses out there or having, these courses. It's, another thing, this one hits home for me big time, is numb routines. So, I have gotten, this has helped me scheduling my social media instead of not like doing it daily, because I will scroll instead of doing whatever it is, or I will do reels over reps, or noise instead of notes from my inner voice, right? And then there's also that, what I remember, the busyness, the busy work bloat. It's like you fill your day with these little nibbling tasks, right? That keep you nibbling at life rather than taking a bite. So laundry, like dude, I could write a list of things, nibble tasks till the freaking sun goes down. And if I got 60 checks, it's like, well, look at all that I did. Not one of those has moved me forward towards what my bags are, my big ass goals, my micro goals, right, within that day. And if you feel called out by any of these, it's not for me to make you feel badly or guilty. It's just I write, these are things that I've done, that I do, right? And what is happening is, instead of judging yourself, just look, this is feedback, right? And it's data, and it's a compass needle that's pointing away from denial, and it's trying to help you get to the dock, right? It's like your true north. And I want to get even, maybe a little bit more specific about, what are your specific harbor habits, So maybe it's the way that you rewrite your bio 10 times, but you never pitch yourself to, the podcast that you love. Or maybe you keep researching gym programs instead of picking one and then logging your first rep today. Or it could be a relationship. You always keep your opinion quiet to avoid, waves. So look, write this stuff down, and, don't make them into these, negative villains, just make them visible. Again, it's data, right? And visibility is going to help dissolve the pretend. When you actually see it, it's going, now you have opportunities to do something about it, you know? So, you know, because when people hear risk, they think, maybe they think of like bungee jumping, or they think cliff diving without a parachute, or like they always say, you know, jump off and your wings will, you know, appear when you take that leap of faith. You know, that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm just talking about, you know, calibrating yourself. You know, if you're learning how, you know, your internal ship behaves, you know, in chaos, right? You know, it's practicing who you are as a seaman. I mean, for lack of a better word, right? And it's reading your environment, and, you know, it's, you know, honoring what your limits are, but also knowing when to extend the edges. And, you know, also too, calculated risks mean that you are looking and you are checking and you are, you know, what do I need? What do I have to do? What steps do I have to take? And then go. And you don't need to have it, again, doesn't need to be a perfect forecast, right? It's just a bias toward movement, just a bias towards taking the first step of action. Because, you know, fear, it, a lot of times we create all of these scenarios in our head, and all we're projecting and having all these mental movies, right? Of things that go wrong, and this and that. And more often than not, most of those, if any, materialize, right? And then if one does, you know, it's just a challenge, it's adversity, it's an obstacle, and it's a moment for us to step back, reset, take a breath, recalibrate, right? You know, it's, you know, the competence that you crave, it lives on the other side of that beginning, right? It's the, if you never take the step forward, you will never grow. And competence, that's your honest friend. You know, you're not going to get that in an audiobook. You know, it's something that grows under your skin, like with the way you get calluses from the act of, you know, consistent dedication and discipline to lifting, right? You know, by, it's the friction of reality as opposed to the friction from the barbell or the weights, right? And when you put yourself in that arena, when you actually like really try, you know, you calibrate and then you iterate. And that's the whole point. You know, you are showing your nervous system that, you know, to build this beautiful, powerful, elegant, resilient, adaptable strength of, I can handle this, right? And that's how confidence becomes, you know, less of a pep talk, and it becomes more of a posture. So with that quote, and again, write it down on a post-it note, you know, or you're going to have it on a, you know, it could be an index card, or if you carry a little journal with you, the quote again, a ship is safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are for, by John A. Shedd. And I, you know, right, again, I want you to have that written down somewhere, and somewhere that you can easily find it. And so I have a challenge for you for this month, right? So I want you to pick one, just one bold move. One. That is it for this entire month. I don't want a freaking bucket list. I don't want 12. I don't want 3. I don't want 2. One. One move, you know, a move that raises your heart rate when you say it out loud. Something that gives you like, oh my God, in your stomach, like, oh, you know, and the kind that makes your brain almost bargain with you, like, you know, what if I did half of it? Or, you know, it's like, what if we did the next quarter? Like literally your brain is trying to auction with you, right? That's how you know it's the right one. Okay. So, and they know, tell your brain no, yes, we're doing it this month. You know, maybe if you're an athlete at heart, it could be you're entering a local comp, or you're going to book the 5K, or you're going to sign up for the ruck, or you're going to finally, maybe it's finally aiming for that first strict pull up, or even a push up, right? If you're a builder, you know, publish the sales page or open the pre-order and reach out to that collaborator that you've silently been admiring. Maybe it's, you know, perhaps you're a writer. pitch the outlet, send the chapter, read the piece. Do they still do open mics? Go somewhere, read it. Like, or, maybe there's a writing group that you can join. And, like, honestly, get cotton mouth and let your knees feel a little shaky. Maybe you're a leader, or, and it's having that hard conversation, but you're having it with kindness and clarity, right? You're naming the standard, you're making it teachable, and you are protecting your yes. It's look, honestly, if you're a human with a heartbeat, ask for what you need, ask for what you want, and ask your favorite person to go hike on a Saturday, or do whatever it is. And maybe bring your favorite snacks along, and find that vista and hang out there, right? Pack too many snacks. I always pack when I go on a day hike, or go on weekends go hiking. My husband always overpack the snacks. I pack a day pack like I would be packing it for a month, and my backpack is so heavy. That's okay. That's part of the fun, right? Your bold move doesn't have to be super cinematic, right? It just needs to be true to you. And if it's honest to God scary, and I mean scary to you, because it's going to be different for each of us. What is scary to me might be an absolute, death jump to somebody else. But what is, so for me, what I view as scary is different from somebody else, right? And it doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make anybody else wrong. Our scary is each going to be different to us. Our uncomfortable is, it's unique to us. And, keep it aligned, because that counts. Maybe you need to tell a friend, or tell me. Email me at grittyglitterbadger@gmail.com. Seriously, I freaking love this kind of stuff. I want to cheer you on. I want to be there for you, right? And put a date on it. That is so important. This month becomes, say maybe it's by November 15th at 9 a.m., right? Specificity, that's the that's the sail on your ship. So, and here's something else. There's a nuance that most people miss when, we talk about visualization and things like that. We jump to the trophy shot right away. And I'm not saying that's wrong. The trophy shot, the medal, the inbox full of yeses, it has its place. But a stronger visualization includes the voyage. So you're literally seeing the entire thing, the beginning, the middle, all the mornings, the mundane, the micro decisions at 6:12 a.m., when the bed is warm, and, maybe perhaps the run is going to be cold, you'd rather be snuggled up with your dogs than get out of bed, whatever it is. Just see yourself getting up. And even if you see yourself getting up tired, tying your shoes, smelling the cold air, hear your footsteps on the concrete, right? Feel that fourth interval when your lungs burn in a way that feels like honesty. And, picture the email subject line that perhaps, it's the pulse in your fingertips, like that you're just hovering over send. We all know what this weirdest, it's amazing the emotions that can be linked to certain things, right? And then see yourself pressing send, right? But now don't send. If this was your first draft and this was the nasty one, don't send that. You go back and edit that, and you send the other one, right? That first one, that was just for you. But anyway, and it's just imagine. The other thing too is knowing, and I learned this, Michael Phelps did this. Not only did he visualize all of his races and, winning them and everything, like from how he, was, what he was, his headphones, and how he approached the platform, and everything that he did leading up to and after. His coaches also had him visualizing when things would go wrong, and they would actually practice mentally in their minds how to overcome that adversity before, like if it actually happened in the pool. And it actually happened. One of his, in the Olympics, his goggles had filled up with water, but he didn't panic because that was something that he and his coaches had actually practiced in visualization. Was your goggles fill up with water, you can't see. And so they started to talk about and fine tune other things that his other senses that he could rely on to help him with the race. And he ended up getting a gold medal. So, with that, maybe it's imagine that first rejection, right? Go through the scenario. This is sometimes I feel like there's this thing like where we aren't supposed to visualize those types of things for fear of making them happen. It's not about that. It's just it's being prepared, and it's being able to anticipate opportunity, right? And knowing that you are resilient, and that a matter of fact reply to yourself, cool, one step closer. I mean, it's like, so that didn't pan out, but I have all of these other opportunities and I'm super excited for those, right? Also visualize the recovery. It could be the water, it could be the meal, it could be the nap, maybe it's the stretching, maybe it's the quiet, maybe there's a specific self-care thing that you like. See yourself meeting your own effort with care. And that's what grown-up grit looks like, not punishment. It's a partnership. And yes, visualize the reward beyond the risk. It's not just the shiny object, but the identity that you're rehearsing, right? It's, the person who shows up. It's the person who finishes. It's the person whose word to self is a contract, right? It's the person who tells themselves they matter. And, that bigger goal, the bags, the big ass goals, that's deeper. And that actually deepens that self-trust, right? That's the treasure. It's this currency that spends, in every ocean, if you will. So, with that, it's always important, also to anchoring to your why, because every ship needs to have an anchor. I mean, we all know that, right? And so your why, it's not merely just not to be impressive. You're not doing this because you want other people to hear what your why is, whatever. Just gets for you, right? And your why is often quieter. So, maybe it's so my daughter sees me finish what I start, or so my health gives me a long, feral life, right? So I can spend more days in the woods with people I love, whatever it is, you know, anchoring to your why changes the feel of discomfort. And so there could even be like you have a darker why, like silly, to you it's whatever it is, right? It doesn't make the adverse or the swells or the challenge or whatever it is smaller, but it makes that voyage, it makes that journey much more meaningful. And your why is the hand on your back that says, steady, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. I love my 4 hot badger tips, so I'm going to give you four hot badger tips to take you into this first week of November and to help you with this for the rest of the month. So 10-minute launch. So set a timer for 10 minutes and begin the first micro step of your bold move, right? So when the timer ends, decide another 10 and then, or a victory lap. So whatever it is, whatever you feel in that moment, sometimes, and this is, I can say from a creativity standpoint, or, when working on the computer and things like that, 10, 15 minutes, sometimes I do need to walk away for a little bit and then I'll come back and I'll reset it, right? But the rule is to start 10 minutes. It's a magic key. The other one, I'm going to call this one the harbor swap. So identify one harbor habit and swap it, right? So example could be, maybe it's replacing your late night scroll with a late night stretch, and then tomorrow's top 3 on a sticky note, right? So, you put your phone in the kitchen and then put your goal where your eyes land first thing in the morning. The accountability ping. So this one is text one person right now, whoever it is for you, that my bold move this month is, and my first step on, that's your date and time, and then we'll report back. Simple. So courage loves witnesses, right? And then ask them to just ping you or check in with you if things go dark, just to make sure that everything's okay. The 24-hour debrief. So anytime you do a rep of bravery, just debrief within 24 hours. And what I mean by this is ask yourself what worked, and what was wonky, what felt a little weird or chaotic, right? And then where's that, what's that one tweak? And then capture it. And this is how you turn events into skill. So, before bed, like maybe it's you step outside for 60 seconds, right? This is cool. I get to take my dogs out at night like one last time, and it's really cool because it's quieter, and you just sometimes there's like an owl that we can hear. And I just want you to look up at the November sky and whisper one sentence: I leave the harbor when it's time. And then add another: it's time, right? And then go inside and, put your shoes where you're not going to fall over them, fill your water bottle. And then maybe it's prepping that doc that you're going to write in tomorrow so that you don't have to open it cold, right? And put a sticky note on your mirror with your bold move, right? And then sleep like the person who keeps those promises, just like you would do for anybody else. So before we cast off and we get started on our one move, I just want you to remember that you don't need to brandish this whole new personality to do brave things, right? You don't need the perfect gear, timetable, or origin story to go along with it, right? You just need an honest why, a small plan, and a bias toward movement, action, and growth, right? And you already own the ship. So, your ocean is waiting, and it's, not with, it doesn't have a little like watching you, a little checklist, rubric, or whatever it is, but it just has a wide open, expansive space ready for you, right? And Safe and Harbor, that is just a really lovely rest stop, but it's not your life's address. So identify your harbor habits, choose a single calculated risk this month, visualize the entire journey as carefully as you would visualize, the daydream to the finish, right? Anchor to your why, and then step out, and just have your, head held high and your shoulders back. Because remember, we are not here to be, you know, tossed around. We're here to be all things, really. We are here to be expansive, and we are here for growth, right? So happy first Monday of November. Again, take 10 minutes today, put your ship in motion, and one honest step, then another. And then if this landed, share it with a friend who needs wind and a nudge, and drop your bold move in the comments or email me at grittyglitterbadger@gmail.com. It will be in the show notes so that I can cheer you on, so we can all cheer each other on, and again, before you go to sleep tonight, remind yourself the time is now. Don't just go through life, grow through life.